Being a chartered manager means that you are a specialist in that area, and it means you've got all the skills to do the job to the best of its ability.
You are seen as a leader, a true leader who has credentials behind the great work you've already been doing.
It's enhanced my understanding, it's enhanced my skill set, it's improved my mindset.
It makes all the difference.
This session is recorded and will be available on the CMI website and YouTube channel. Join the conversation by using the live chat box for your questions and comments. We'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the AI Unpacked, Revolutionising Entrepreneurship Work and Academia digital event. My name is Mary Bolawale, and I am an event delivery coordinator at CMI. Don't forget to join the conversation by using the live chat box. Feel free to ask any questions you have for the speakers, and we'll answer as many as possible during the Q&A session. I will now hand over to Neil Reynolds, the chair of the CMI Wales Regional Board, to begin today's event.
Thank you, Mary, for your introduction. Yes, Neil Reynolds, I'm the chair of CMI Cymru in Wales, and I'm delighted to be moderating today's discussion on how AI is shaping the way we can work, learn, and innovate. AI is no longer a distant concept. It is actively transforming industries, businesses, and academia. It enhances productivity, enables innovation, and revolutionizes decision-making. However, it also presents challenges, skills gaps, ethical concerns, and the urgent need for AI-savvy leadership. In higher education, AI is forcing us to rethink how we assess learning, as tools like ChatGPT challenge traditional formats, like essays and online exams. These issues are at the heart of today's discussion. To help navigate these topics, we have three expert panelists bringing perspectives from business, academia, and AI implementation. I will introduce them now, and then we'll then move to some focused questions for each of them. Towards the end, we will open the floor for audience Q&A. So get ready to join the conversation and place your questions in the chat. So without further ado, let me please introduce Dr. Cecilia Choi, a companion of the Chartered Management Institute and an AI and innovation expert. Cecilia has designed an MBA course on innovation, entrepreneurship, and technological change, and is passionate about developing AI-savvy leadership. She will share insights into AI strategy, skills gaps, and ethics. Welcome, Cecilia.
Thank you, Neil. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be with you today. So I'm Cecilia Choi, and I'm the founder chair of CMI Hong Kong. I have been serving the Charter Management Institute since the mid-1990s. And in these years, I have been helping the Hong Kong branch to develop boards composed of seasoned and young executives. I have started my career at Swire and Citicorp, and then joined the teaching profession for 2 decades. And in recent years, I have been running my consulting business. During 2019 to 2020, I developed an MBA course titled Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Technological Change, building on Peter Drucker's insights. I partnered with Professor Joseph Masiello, who was the closest ally of Peter Drucker. And I've been tracing the development of AI from management and humanity perspectives. And my current business links leading UK institutions and businesses to Hong Kong, China, and Asia Pacific to advance knowledge and practice.
Thank you, Cecilia. Chris Tanner, the founder, well, actually a serial entrepreneur and also the founder of Harvest, a technology-driven business using AI for smart greenhouse automation. As an entrepreneur, Chris has first-hand experience in leveraging AI in small businesses and will share the opportunity and challenges of AI adoption in entrepreneurship. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Neil. So there's not a lot more I can add to that.
No, that's good.
Today. But yes, absolutely. I run a few small businesses out of West Wales here, and they're all tech related. So ranging from hardware, electronics design, irrigation, through to firmware, circuit boards, electronics, all the way up to software and user interactions. So all of those technical levels definitely have various interactions now with the capabilities of AI. Looking forward to exploring that with you.
Thank you, Chris. So, and last, we have Professor Phil Newton, a leading academic at Swansea University, specializing in AI's impact on education, learning, and assessment. Phil is a strong advocate for rethinking assessment formats in higher education in response to AI, ensuring that qualifications genuinely reflect learning outcomes. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. Not an awful lot to add to that, except to say I'm not an AI expert. I'm a neuroscientist. I have a bit of an understanding about how this works, but not maybe about how this works. And I've done a lot of work historically on assessment in universities and cheating, which undermines assessment. And that is essentially how I've ended up here today. AI clearly is perceived as, and genuinely is, a threat to the validity of the assessments we use in higher education, and we've got to do something about it. And talking to you folks is going to be a big part of that, I think.
No, thank you, Phil. So, Cecilia, if I may start with you, we go straight into some questions here. AI is more than just technology. And I've certainly been learning from you in the past days on the exchanges that we had. And pretty much you're telling me that it requires a strategic mindset. What are the three essential pillars that organizations need to establish to successfully embrace AI?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I totally agree with you. So AI has the potential to transform every business. To embrace AI successfully, we need to pay attention to three essential pillars, namely mapping organizational and AI strategies, technology, and change management. So the first pillar is mapping organizational and AI strategies. We need to consider what are our top business priorities and how AI can help us deliver our strategic goals. For example, AI priorities may include delivering smarter products and services, making business functions such as accounts, sales, and HR more intelligent. Also, we need to consider data strategy. AI needs lots of data to work. Therefore, we need to review data strategy. For example, do we have the right sort of data to achieve our AI priorities? If we don't have the right type of volume of data, how can we get the data we need? The second pillar is technology. We need to identify the technology and infrastructure implications of the decisions made. What technology is required to achieve our AI priorities? For example, machine learning, deep learning, or reinforcement learning, etc. Do we have the right technology in place already? If not, what systems do we need to put in place? The third pillar is change management. Nowadays, people are so weary of AI, in particular, what it might mean for their jobs. So change management is a really important part of any AI project. Under this pillar, we need to consider people and organizational issues. For example, which teams will be impacted by this AI project? How should the change process be managed? How will AI change our corporate culture? And how can we manage that cultural change? So in sum, there are three strategic pillars A, mapping organizational and AI strategies, B, technology, and C, change management. Once we have looked at each of these areas, we can then start to create a more formal AI strategy document. Thank
you,
you.
Cecilia. Just by way of a follow-up there, how can leaders ensure that their teams are aligned with these strategic priorities?
Yeah, good question. To make the AI strategy a successful one, we need to help teams to go through the change process. And there are 6 steps, I would say. Firstly, AI readiness. We need to assess staff members' current level of AI knowledge, skills, and attitudes, as well as to map learning needs and interests. This helps to tailor-make AI training and communication plans. Secondly, AI vision and value proposition. We have to communicate AI vision and value proposition to teams. We can use stories and examples to communicate in a clear and compelling way. Thirdly, involving your team in AI initiatives. We can create opportunities for staff to participate in AI projects, experiments, or pilots. This helps to increase engagement, ownership, and trust in AI. Fourthly, AI training and support. We should provide teams with learning opportunities and resources. For example, we can create a network of AI mentors, coaches, or peers that can guide and inspire them on their AI journey. And fifthly, rewarding AI achievements. Recognizing and rewarding your team's AI achievements would greatly help to boost teammates' confidence, satisfaction, and loyalty. Finally, fostering a culture of AI literacy, collaboration, and experimentation. We can set realistic goals and standards, and it is important to promote a culture of curiosity, openness, innovation, and risk-taking on AI. So to conclude, AI offers huge potential. Success depends not on the technology itself, but on the key elements of culture and human capability.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you for bringing up culture there. And also thank you for the audience. I see some questions coming through. Chris, if I may move on to, let's say, onto business. AI is often seen as something for big corporations, yet you successfully embedded or integrated AI into your smaller startup businesses. How has AI helped Harvest in particular then, and what impact has it had on your business model?
So I see AI tools essentially as extra resources, extra manpower that we can lean on to mainly speed up development and innovation. So ChatGPT is a pretty well-known interface to AI where you're just asking it questions and it replies to you. And once you learn how to manage that resource, just like you learn how to manage a person, then you've got an incredible amount of power on tap very, very quickly. So I mean, I'm the main engineer in the business, and I use Claude, which is a French equivalent of ChatGPT, on a pretty much daily basis to find ways to improve software. So find bugs in the software. It will write code for you. And I've worked with various grads over the last couple of years who would do a similar kind of role. But the AI responses, unfortunately, I'm afraid to say, are faster, more reliable, and closer to the final goal than many inexperienced developers. But the big risk is just taking it at face value. You really do need experience in driving AI to be able to take that to a final product you can't just copy and paste, perhaps like you might be able to do in other content generation. You have to have the experience in the domain to be able to ask the right questions and to be able to use the information properly. So we use it for, yes, development of software, finding bugs, but interestingly and more recently, I've been using it to actually design and develop hardware. So the electronic circuit boards have microchips on them, and the data sheets for these microchips are in the public domain and therefore available to be used by the AI environment. It takes a long time to trawl through these data sheets to find the little bit of detail you need to fix that specific chip. But now I can just ask a question, and within seconds, I get the right answer that's been aggregated from this data sheet and other data sheets and other public domain content, which is incredible. It's allowed a very small company like us to develop some fairly high-tech products with very little time and low budget.
No, it's fascinating. So it appears to me that you're using AI for, let's say, complex challenges. But what advice would you give a small business who's maybe hesitant about adopting AI? How give an example of how you kick that off for yourself.
So I'm fairly technical, and I'm happy to open AI conversations in that domain. But elsewhere in the organization, we've got customer service demands. So we've got support questions, support tickets coming in from customers on a regular basis, and matching those questions to the correct answers in a chatbot format, potentially, is something we're exploring at the moment, but we're not quite confident enough to roll out to the public because we want it to be right the first time. So that's an area that I'm a little bit cautious about, and take it steady.
Yeah.
And then the other area is sales analysis. So we've got a few years of trading data and a lot of information that we are yet to throw over to AI for analysis. Because if we can see patterns in that data, repeat customers and so on, and where our customers are, times of buying, we are hoping that that will surface out of the data through some AI capabilities. So we'll see about that. And then the last thing that we do is, because we've got a consumer environmental control box, it senses temperature and so on, across the country, we've got a huge amount of environmental data that we're tracking. And to your point, Cecilia, you need to have a lot of data and you need quality data for then the results to be useful and trusted. And at this point, we're unsure as to how to use that data, but we know that the data will be needed in the future. So at this early stage of our business, we're capturing as much data as possible. AI is moving so fast. On a weekly basis, I'm seeing improvements in the way that I'm getting these responses back. And I thought I couldn't be more surprised. And then the next week, my mind is blown again by what I see myself engaging with. It's incredible.
Yeah, to me, just, it's a massive data that we're all having to consume these days. And I think that's one of the challenges. Maybe we'll get back to this point, but I think one of the challenges for leaders is probably data overload, and is to sieve out, the data that we need to take forward to help us make the right decisions. Phil, if I can move on to you now. So higher education, in our earlier conversation, you've highlighted the urgent need to review assessment formats in UK higher education. Could you explain why traditional formats like essays and online exams are becoming ineffective in the AI era?
I certainly can. And I don't think they're becoming ineffective. I think they have become ineffective.
Right. Okay.
I learned it the hard way. During COVID, we moved a lot of our assessments online, and they were unsupervised. We did it in an emergency. We had to. We wanted then, as we came out of COVID, to try and keep some of the benefits of online assessment. There's a lot of flexibility. It's potentially less stressful for students, cheaper, etc. But there were concerns about cheating. And so myself and one of our medical students, we designed a way to write exam questions that couldn't be cheated on using Google. And we ran some experiments, and we proved that you couldn't Google the answers to these exam questions if you wrote them a certain way. And I wrote that paper and we submitted it. And 6 days later, ChatGPT came out and smashed it to pieces. Yeah. We tested it all again. We found ways to defeat ChatGPT, and I rewrote the paper on a train journey into London to go to a conference, March the 14th, 2023. And I was on stage at the conference in London, and I was asked about ChatGPT, and I said, we figured it out. We know how to defeat ChatGPT. Write your exams questions this way, and you will be fine. And at the exact same time that I was on stage saying this to this conference in London, OpenAI, the people that make ChatGPT, had their own YouTube live stream, and they were unveiling what was then the new ChatGPT, GPT-4. And one of the ways in which they demonstrated it was much better than the old ChatGPT was that it could pass exam questions to a much higher standard. And I realized at that point, we were never going to outrun these tools. And since then, there has been an abundance of research that shows over and over again, if the research is done rigorously and properly, if we give ChatGPT or generative AI tools generally an exam question or an essay title or some sort of research project or anything that's written or generated in any way asynchronously, then the responses that the AI will produce will generally be of a higher quality than that produced by the average students. And we know this from experiments where markers have been given work from generative AI versus work from students, not been told which one is which, and asked to grade them. They normally give higher marks to ChatGPT, and they find it very difficult to identify the work that's been generated by AI versus the work generated by students. The challenge then, I guess, is these types of assessments are, however, still commonly used all the way through university higher education. And there's an extra wrinkle, particularly in the UK, that many universities are still using the types of assessments that we used during COVID. To bring us back to where we started, you will have seen, some of you, I think, the story in the Daily Telegraph today and in the Times a couple of days ago about the fact that most universities are still using unsupervised online exams that students do at home, which they can and will use ChatGPT to do. And so we urgently need to make our assessments fit for purpose.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Cecilia, if I maybe move back to you on leadership, the demand for AI savvy leadership is growing. We're all going to need to come to terms with that as leaders. So what specific skills do leaders need to develop to navigate the AI era effectively?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Indeed, AI is a great leadership challenge. Executives are under immense pressure to integrate AI while still trying to understand its complexities. So how can business executives become AI savvy leaders? There are some insights from Professor David D. Kramer, who was with University of Cambridge before, and now he is with a leading US institution. So he has authored a book titled The AI Savvy Leader: 9 Ways to Take Back Control and Make AI Work. And I would like to share some key tips for becoming an AI savvy leader. First, understanding AI's role. So we need to identify how AI can enhance productivity and create value for our business. Second, adopting a human-centered approach. So prioritize the human elements of AI integration and focusing on benefits for employees and stakeholders. Third, focusing on augmentation. That means use AI to augment human capabilities rather than merely automizing tasks. And fourth, direct engagement. As leaders, please avoid delegating AI projects solely to tech experts. We should remain engaged to ensure alignment with business goals. And fifth, upholding ethical standards, as well as fostering a culture of trust and transparency. Six, cultivating critical thinking, agility, curiosity, and collaboration to navigate AI complexities. Seventh, communicating clearly. Leaders have to articulate the purpose and benefits of AI to ease workforce, the adoption by the workforce, and reduce resistance. And eighth, adopting a long-term perspective and continuously learning. And nine, leading by example. Leaders have to demonstrate your AI skills. And in order to build trust and motivate teams. And 10, creating a safe environment. We have to foster a culture of psychological safety so teams can experiment with AI and learn from mistakes. So I believe that by embracing the above 10 principles, leaders can effectively navigate the complexities of AI integration and ensuring it serves as a valuable tool for enhancing human capabilities and driving business success.
Thank you, Cecilia. So if I wanted to find that top 10 tips, as I call them, where would I find that?
It's from Professor David D. Kramer's book, The AI Savvy Leader, 9 Ways to Take Back Control and Make AI Work. Yes.
Thank you. So Chris, moving back to business now, AI can clearly automate many tasks. And some people may fear that it's going to replace human jobs. In your experience, has AI been a job creator or a job displacer?
I think it's probably a combination of both. So where we've displaced some roles, we've also grown the business faster, which has therefore opened up other roles. And it depends on the scale of the organization. We're a tiny company, so it's only partial roles for us. So where I may shave hours from one role, the company then becomes more productive and more efficient, the margins improve, and therefore I can grow typically sales, marketing, or support faster than I would need to grow an engineering team at the current stage. I know AI in marketing is certainly improving too, so that might be another area where it would be a challenge for roles. I see one of the questions that pops up is it's a challenge for recent graduates moving into the market who have to now not only compete with their colleagues, but they have to compete with technology to find a role in an organization, which can be really intimidating. But in some ways, you could look at it. My mental arithmetic is shocking because I know how to use a calculator, which is just a tool. But because I know how to use a calculator, I can do incredible maths problems pretty quickly. So if graduates can be educated as to how to use these new tools, then they'd be seen as a useful employee in an organization who needs to employ AI within the company. So hopefully that covers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. And do you see, you probably answered it, but do you see AI creating new roles or reshaping existing ones? When I say reshaping, can also mean upskilling existing roles.
I'd say the latter for our specific case, but there are also very much new opportunities that come with AI. I was talking to a colleague just on the drive back in the van yesterday where a warehouse currently might be using RFID or barcode scanning. There's a manual process of scan box, put on shelf, and so on, which still leaves room for human error. Yeah. But there's an opportunity for a warehouse to be fully equipped with cameras that just watch everything. And the human just moves around and doesn't have to think about these processes because the AI is tracking what's going on what shelf, what's coming out. So that's a new opportunity for a new product that is opened up by this kind of technology. And really, imagination is the limit. We talk about an entrepreneurial paradox and can AI replace entrepreneurial innovation? But I think innovation is a very human thing. And these ideas and these inspirations will always be human. And it's up to us to use the tools to do the less inspirational work.
Thank you. Phil, it was interesting that you used the word cheating. It sounds rather harsh maybe, but if AI is making it easier to pass assessments without genuine learning, what alternative methods should universities explore to ensure students graduate with skills that reflect real world demands, which is going to include AI?
Yeah, it's a really big question. And I think I'd start an answer by saying it's not for me to come here as a neuroscientist and tell folks from a different discipline how we should assess your students. I think a big part of the answer to this question is this is a great opportunity for higher education to work with employers and other stakeholders to say, what do you want? And there's a question I saw in the chat come up from somebody asking exactly the same, from someone who's a lecturer saying, what would you want from your students, from the graduates, I should say, that we can help to support the students to develop? Some broader principles of assessment, I guess. When we run workshops on what makes an effective assessment, we start and finish with a simple definition that an effective assessment is a measure, a valid and reliable measure of what someone can do. And that's the most important thing. We use a lot of proxies for that in UK higher education. So we might get people to write about what they can do rather than actually do it. And maybe what we need to do is to go back to what people can actually do in person, practical, direct observation of what people can do. And that, I think, will actually make assessment better generally, regardless of AI or not. Having an in-person assessment, having someone do something practical, potentially skills-based, but certainly with an examiner right there with them, I think will make an assessment better. There is an intuitive but slightly flawed perspective that comes up quite a lot from folks who, across various different disciplines, which is essentially the idea that if AI can do a whole bunch of things, then why would we get students to do them? So the idea of memorizing facts, for example, comes up a lot. Why do we need people to memorize things or learn basic facts when AI can do it and they have it in their pocket? With my neuroscientist hat back on, the way that people learn is cumulative. So we must not lose sight of the fact that in order to do some of the higher order graduate skills that I'm assuming folks are going to want people to do, you have to learn the basic knowledge. Many people be familiar with this idea of a taxonomy of learning, where you start with recalling and retrieving and memorizing, and you eventually move up to critical appraisal and generating new knowledge. You can't skip the bits at the bottom. So I think we do have to make sure that where we're getting people to learn the basic principles of whatever discipline, that's probably going to have to be fairly traditional examinations that are in person. After that, the practical, the applied, the critical synthesis, the graduate skills, it's up to you folks really. I think we're going to have to get answers from industry about what the skills are that graduates are going to need, and then work backwards from there, rather than getting universities to try and tell people what the skills the graduates are going to have, and then map those onto the workforce.
Yeah, you pretty much answered what probably would have been a follow-on question, in that, so your students are going to go out into an AI world. So are you already engaging with industry today and trying to align their needs with the needs of, actually just aligning, the employer's needs with the outputs from a university? How are you shifting that in terms of the skill sets that are required today?
I mean, I can speak mostly from my perspective as someone who works in medical school. I don't think that any other industries are, many industries are going to be similar in that they themselves don't know, and Chris talked about this earlier on. Every week there is something new. Every week I have to edit the slides and start again with the talk about AI because it's changed. And medicine is no different. And I'm sure, it sounds like from the experiences that Chris is talking about, his he's experiencing the same thing. So we are obviously engaging with the people who will employ our graduates, asking them what they want. Unfortunately, what they're often saying to us is, we don't know. It's an exhilarating time for the society, really, seeing the development of these tools. I guess as a general principle, having better industry university partnerships, having industry academics on employment boards as part of program development, as part of roles as examiners, those are the sorts of things that I think we would advocate for regardless of AI. And I think now are more important than ever is just bringing those people together and having a conversation about it.
No, thank you. And you also touched on ethics as well, but if I can maybe pose that one to you, Cecilia. Ethical challenges are one of the biggest concerns of AI adoption.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as the most pressing ethical risks, and how can organizations implement the governance around that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. I perceive that the most pressing ethical risk is about employment. There is a fear of losing jobs. According to a World Economic Forum survey, about 40% of employers intend to downsize their workforce as AI automates certain tasks. Also, as reflected in the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, 77% employers were planning to reskill or upskill their existing workers between 2025 to 2030 to better work alongside with AI. But on the other hand, it is forecast that AI may create more jobs, as Chris mentioned. After all, people will be tasked with creating robots to begin with, and then manage them in the future. So in sum, I would like to end with an optimistic note. The primary impact of AI on jobs may lie in their potential for augmenting human skills through human-machine collaboration, rather than in outright replacement, particularly given the continued importance of human-centered skills. As for your second question about implementation of ethical AI governance, now I would suggest there are 4 major principles. A is on empathy. Organizations should understand the societal implementations of AI, not just the technological and financial aspects. They need to anticipate and address the impacts of AI on all stakeholders. B, bias control. It is essential to rigorously examine training data to prevent embedding real-world biases into AI algorithms, helping to ensure fair and unbiased decision-making processes. C is about transparency. There must be clarity and openness in how AI algorithms operate and make decisions, with organizations ready to explain the logic and reasoning behind AI-driven outcomes. And D is about accountability. Organizations should proactively set and adhere to high standards to manage the significant changes AI can bring and maintaining responsibility for AI's impacts. In short, measuring AI governance effectiveness can vary by organization, and each organization must decide what focus areas they should prioritize. There is a wide range of focus areas, such as data quality, model security, course value analysis, bias monitoring, individual accountability, and continuous auditing. Indeed, it is not a one-size-fits-all decision.
Thanks, Cecilia. We've probably got about another 5 minutes before I want to go in and try and respond to some of these questions. But Chris, as an entrepreneur, you're making strategic decisions about what technology to adopt. What criteria could you share maybe with startups or SMEs to consider when deciding on AI is the right fit for their business?
I think jumping in and actually giving it a go and educating yourself as to the current capabilities and what it feels like. So as humans, we assess everything we're looking at. Is this good? Is it right? Is it worthwhile? And we've got a new type of input now to try and assess. Phil, you talk about the actual assessment of an essay. As a manager, I would be assessing a report or other piece of information that was coming to me. And I find myself having to be more diligent and scrutinize deeper now to assess, well, how is this report produced? Do I really trust it? And just like you look at an image, and first glance, it might look real, but then you look deeper and you go, hang on, that's not a real, genuine image. And that can happen across the board. So understanding how to be critical is a key part of assessing, but then becoming familiar with the tool firsthand will help you decide whether it's useful in your organization, because you can jump in for free. ChatGPT, Claude, there's others out there. But just giving it a go will educate you a huge amount as to what is capable of.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So have you come across any obstacles in the adoption? And can you maybe give some examples how you overcame that?
I don't think I can really. It's so accessible. It's essentially free.
Yeah.
You can pay a certain amount to get more capabilities, but the cost is very, very low barrier to entry. So far, I would say there's very few obstacles.
Just give it a go. Good advice. Okay. So Phil, before we try and attempt some of the questions in the chat, and we had some pre-submitted questions as well. The broader concern about AI and academic integrity. I think you touched on this already, but should universities consider even banning AI tools in learning, or should they embrace them as part of education?
Honestly, we should do both. I think banning them outright and completely is a non-starter. I think these tools are here to stay. Like Chris, I use ChatGPT just because that's the one I signed up for. I use it every day. And there was a question in the chat about whether academics should use it for learning. Absolutely. At the same time, as I touched upon earlier, I think there's an important role for supporting people to develop core foundational knowledge. And I can't find a way to assess that in the presence of AI. And fundamentally, the legal definition of what a university is for is to certify learning. That's what a degree certificate is. It says this person can do these things to this standard at this time. And in order to do that in a way that means the degree certificate still has some value and is still trusted and means something, it has to be clear what it is that has been assessed. And I think we need to both keep it out of some assessments, to bring it into some assessments, but in both cases, to be absolutely clear. Core knowledge, foundational knowledge, basic exams, secure conditions, keep it out. The applied stuff, I saw there was a question in the chat about things that can't be done in person because they need research, they need to take time. That's absolutely right. I think we need to support people to use these AI tools to do that. I think the final assessment, the final decision made about whether someone can do something or not does still need to be made in person, but that can be a capstone on top of weeks or months of work. If you've done a report, you've written a report, you then present it to an examiner and you're asked questions about it. And that demonstrates that you have done the learning or not. I do think there is a broader question for society, really, about bringing these tools in or keeping them out of assessments, because it is very commonly suggested that we should just let students use the tools, cite where they have used them, because they are available in the real world. And I do worry a little bit from an existential perspective about what that would mean for the generation and creation of new knowledge by humans. I personally feel like we need to make sure we keep doing that. And so there probably does need to be assessments where people are assessed and they do the learning in the absence of AI. So the short answer is we need to do both, but the circumstances are different.
No, thanks, Phil. So just staying with you then, I think there were some pre-submitted questions. I think I'll touch on a couple of those first before we go to the live chat, to be fair. There was a question that we got from Alison, a pre-submitted question. So what is the number one challenge posed by universities by AI today? Sounds a simple question, but it's probably a complex answer.
It's an existential question, which probably requires an existential answer, which I've partially touched on. What is the university for? Is to certify learning. Okay, so we need to make sure that when we certify learning, it's valid and it's meaningful. And then people like Chris, Cecilia, yourself, the audience, when a graduate comes to them and they present their certificate, you can be confident that the certificate reflects the learning of the person. Currently, the way that we assess students has a number of very serious challenges. Let's put it that way. In the UK in particular, universities are under enormous financial pressure because the fees have essentially been capped for 10 years. The cost of doing higher education has gone up enormously, as it has for every other domain of human activity. And so many universities are stuck with these outmoded assessments that are not fit for purpose with AI being present, and essays and report writing in an asynchronous way is part of that. And particularly these online exams that people did during COVID, where students are doing exams at home. I've got ChatGPT open in the next window. It can do all of the exams for them. So the learning then the certification, I should say, is not valid. So I think bringing assessments up to date is the number one challenge, and it needs to have already happened. It hasn't yet, and I'm hopeful, but by the next academic year rolls around, there needs to have been a steer from the quality assurance agencies in the UK and from the government itself to say we need to change the way that we're assessing students so that it's fit for the folks in the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Cecilia, there was also a question pre-submitted from Sarah. How can we remain secure when using AI, especially around personal data?
Very good question. As we all know, nowadays, industries require greater control over their data, and companies have been reserved to leverage public AI services resulting from security and privacy risks, cost concerns, and vendor lock-in. So to ensure AI give enterprises a competitive advantage, more and more companies are exploring private AI. So it's a secure and customized infrastructure to control data and operations. For organizations like financial institutions, private AI can deliver the best of both worlds, allowing them to pursue all the benefits of AI and use some public AI solutions while protecting data security. For example, private AI can solve some major challenges like maximizing data privacy while meeting sovereignty requirements. Also, AI model training and tuning in a secure, dedicated environment that protects data. Furthermore, AI inference at the edge in a secure manner with low suspension.
No, thanks, Cecilia. So Chris, I think your turn here, and you've been singled out on one, so I'm going to ask you this directly. How do you ensure that confidentiality of data when you are sharing them with AI? That's from Matters.
Absolutely. It's really essential when you're putting anything now in the public domain to know the implications of it. It's not just with AI. So anytime you put something outside of your organization, consider the personal information that you're sharing. And if you're uploading, in this particular example, it might be a sales data spreadsheet or sales data database, ensure that all personal information is scrubbed before any information goes into the public domain. I think hopefully that covers that one.
Yeah, no, it does. I've got one here for Phil as well from Jamie. Interesting one. Has your organization considered the use of AI in marking and providing immediate feedback on student assessments?
Yeah, we have considered it. It's not a decision that I am responsible for making. I know that many other organizations have been approached, and there are companies that offer this service. There are lots of benefits to it. It clearly is immediate, and it will be deep. It will be critical. I think there are some concerns along the lines of what Chris was talking about. Once you put a student's assessment into these tools, who owns it? Where has it gone? What will it be used for? Those are questions that the answers to those questions are changing all the time. They depend upon the tool. They depend upon the privacy policy. There are professional body requirements as well. I know some of the regulators for professions will be very hesitant to allow that to happen. And then I think there's again a very basic existential question. We ran a study on this with some of our medical students. They do a very high stakes in-person assessment where they do 16 short practical exams in one go. It's a really, really good assessment. But there have always been concerns with any in-person assessment about things like unconscious bias, about whether the examiner is up to date, whether the examiner has time to give feedback, and whether the examiner is accurate, for example. And this is true in all disciplines. We asked a bunch of medical students, how about this? We'll give you AI as an examiner, and it will be immediate. It will give you instant feedback. It will be very deep. It will be very constructive, and it will be less biased, hypothetically. Would you accept that? And they said no. And in the follow-up to the study, we said, well, why not? And they couldn't really tell us. It came from here rather than here. And I think that's possibly something that all organizations are going to have to wrestle with to some extent, is the basic psychology of human-computer interaction. Are people going to want to have decisions made about them by tools, by machines? And some people will, some people won't, but I think there'll be enough people that will be very uncomfortable about that. That getting back to the answer of Jamie's question, if a student gets a poor mark and it's been done by AI, I think they will quite rightly say, I'm unhappy about that and I want a human to do it. And you maybe end up back with humans making judgment, back to square one, so to speak.
Thank you, Phil. Cecilia, your MBA program made me think of you would be a good person to answer this question. From Catherine Thompson, can you give examples of how AI is used in learning and development within organizations?
I think first of all, AI provides lots of data, and so it helps to help developers or teachers saving time on collecting information. Or nowadays, I understand some AI tools can help, say, refining your work or evaluating your work as a kind of assistant or co-worker. So I would, as a researcher and a writer, I would say the best way to use AI, to me, is from the very basic background work. I start with the basic work. For example, having AI to check the data, background data, and then to advise what is the direction. So as academics or trainers, we also need to ask the right questions. So AI can help you identify or to summarize contents that you need to work on. So it can help trainers or professionals to save time and work more productively in a way. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. As much as we would, I'm sure, love to go through all these questions, and I know you've been scanning them as they're coming in. I think we probably need to move on now to probably a final question, I think, for the speakers, all of you, I think, to give some feedback to the audience. If there was one thing that you hope the audience takes away from this conversation today, and how it applies to their own work, business, or learning, what would it be? What would be your big tip for today? Let's start with Phil.
I think Chris has already given it, and that is to have a go. I mean, it sounds flippant, but honestly, so many of the challenges we talked about, what are the great challenges? The challenges to dealing with the challenges are in large part, I think there are many people, possibly not the people who are here, but people who have decided 2 years ago what AI can and cannot do. For understandable reasons, they've parked that and they've got on with their lives. It's changed. It can do things that it couldn't do 6 weeks ago, let alone 6 months ago. And the best thing to do is, if you're not familiar with it, is really just have a go. Experiment with what it can do for your business, for your work, for your students. That's experientially the best way to learn, and I would start and finish with that, really.
Thank you. So we already know yours then, Chris. Have a go.
I think possibly to just add on to that is never be complacent that you think you know what you know. So I'm very aware that I've focused exclusively on text-based AI, and I know there's a whole lot of image generation, video, audio, all of this extra domain, which I'm completely unaware of. But I know that I don't know that, and at some point I've got to catch up. So I think keep exploring.
Thank you. Cecilia?
Thank you. So I would stress that AI is the double-edged sword. We should manage risks while seizing opportunities. Organizations that want to compete in today's market will adopt AI, but executives must keep their eyes open. While AI, has risks that need to be managed, AI can also yield tremendous benefits, giving any company a competitive advantages over larger competitors.
Thanks, Cecilia. So I think we're pretty much near the end, but probably the only thing I'd add to that, and listening to all three of you today, and thank you so much for your time, but AI does need human collaboration. It's not going to work without us. So, it is key that we embrace it. And I do like to wrap up on that one, have a go. You've got nothing to lose to have a go. So if I may close it out here and pass the call back to Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it for today. Thank you to our host, Neil, and to our speakers, Chris, Phil, and Dr. Cecilia, for your insight and expertise. Please stay tuned to hear more about CMI membership, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you again.
Don't forget, as a CMI member, you can find the latest management and leadership insights at managers.org.uk. If you're not yet a member, join our community to discover CMI Confidence with on-demand resources, our network of mentors, and industry-leading accreditations.